An all-new Eye on the Bay in HD starts right now. It's a world that seems so far away, but it's right out our back door. For Bay Area residents, this region is a household name, but most have never been there, and few even know its story, the California Delta. Come along for our two-part series as we show you everything from the tiniest of towns to how tankers navigate through its narrow channels. We'll meet the people, explore its hidden waterways, and go gambling on the water. It's next on Eye on the Bay.
Welcome to Eye on the Bay. I'm Brian Hackney. We're crossing Steamboat Slough from Grand Island to Ryer Island because when you live in a place that has dozens of islands and hundreds of miles of waterways, sometimes a ferry is just the most convenient way to get from point A to point B. And that's just one of an amazing constellation of facts having to do with something you may know very little about. When you think of the Delta, you think of houseboats and fishing and wild parties on remote islands, maybe even those famous wayward whales that took a wrong turn at the Golden Gate. But a trip here will literally take you back into what feels like the deep South. From the landscape to the few small block-long towns, you can easily feel like you're in Mississippi. We're not going to spend a great deal of the time showing you merely where to stay and eat, but we're going to show you some things you've probably never seen, some places you'd have a hard time believing were just 50 miles away from San Francisco, and why this batch of waterways are so vital to the lifeblood of you and me. So, let's get down to the basics. It's about 60 miles east of San Francisco, and you wouldn't be here without it.
Californians have no idea where this is, what this is, and why it's relevant to their lives.
If rain falls in Redding, if it falls 600 miles south near Bakersfield, it all eventually flows out the Golden Gate. But first, it'll course through this bizarre circulatory system with water running in its veins, the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta.
This is an incredibly important place. It receives runoff from almost half of the state of California's water that runs off the surface runs through this delta.
This constitutes 60% of California's water supply passing through here.
Turn on a tap, water the lawn, take a shower. 2 times out of 3, the water for that is coming right out of the delta.
In the Bay Area, 4 million people depend on this water. That's pretty much their water supply.
You can drink it, you can farm it. Oh, by the way, you can also have fun on the Delta.
This is an incredibly important recreation area.
Yeah.
So these guys, so that people actually mess around in boats. Okay, I'll bet you there's alcohol involved.
There usually is.
But it's great. Water sports, water skiing, fishing, hunting.
Yes.
You can do all that. It's a big sportsman paradise.
People here do just about everything by boat, including eat.
Yes, we are. We're coming for lunch.
But good luck paying for it with a credit card. We learned one other thing that will be shocking to people who live in the Bay Area. Is there a Starbucks in town?
No, nothing that I know.
This is California, 1940s and 50s, a place that time forgot. You still have a very close-knit community. You know, the menfolk gather at the local cafes. There's active church groups. There's a lot of old California represented here that's really a shame to lose.
There are 15 little towns and villages in the Delta, including its own Chinatown. There are 500,000 total acres, 57 major islands, 515,000 people living in the 1% of California that provides almost half our drinking water, the Delta. There's a lot of facts and figures, but let's get back to the basics and educate ourselves on something that nobody seems to know. Why is it called the Delta?
These are really good questions.
You got me.
I have no idea. I don't either.
See? Nobody knows what it is. So give me 30 seconds. You'll be smarter than 99% of Californians. Let's say that this is the coastline or shoreline, and you've got a river meandering down to the coast. But right as it gets to the coast, almost at sea level, it begins to branch out into these little sloughs and little creeks and everything. And do you know what this branching pattern looks like?
It's a triangle.
It's shaped like the delta, the Greek symbol of delta, which is why we call them deltas in the first place.
Yes! Delta! It's the Greek letter delta.
But the top of the delta, the point, would be where all the rivers come in, and then it filters out.
What, did you take calculus? Did you know about the delta?
Well, my fraternity was Delta Upsilon, so that comes out.
There's only one problem.
This is not a delta. I mean, from the strictest definition, it's not. It's an estuary. And an estuary is essentially a drowned river. And so the Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers were drowned by the rise in the sea level, particularly over the last 10,000 years. So it's an estuary.
It's a highly modified estuary, of course, whose original flow has been straitjacketed into the famous levees that sometimes work and sometimes don't. How many miles of levee roads like this are there?
1,100 miles. And these are old, creaky levees.
I would take it that it's fair to characterize these as crumbling levees in some cases?
Well, I'd say crummy.
The first levees were built by cheap Chinese labor 150 years ago. What was life like for those workers, do you know?
Very difficult. Of course, they make, we have books that name like $1 day $1, which means that they only make $1 a day.
To take advantage of these incredibly organic rich soils out here, they had to drain the land. And because you can't grow your crops in bogs. So they built levees all around the edges of these islands, and then they literally drained the island.
Sherman Island, Bethel Island, Bacon Island, Staten Island, Venice. The levees turned this part of California into a jigsaw puzzle of nearly 60 islands and features the state's most unnatural wonder. The California Aqueduct sucks 5 million gallons of water a second out of the delta, and it sends it south for 444 miles to Los Angeles. It's the longest stream in California. What are people like?
Friendly.
People are fun.
These are wonderful people that live out here.
Oh, hi.
While we're having this rather bucolic lifestyle, there's a lot of talk about the Delta. There's a storm gathering about its future.
There's one more thing you need to know about the Delta. The islands are sinking.
A lot of the islands in the central part of the Delta are subsided 15, 20 feet below sea level.
Land here used to be about level with the water behind the levees. Now the water can be as much as 20 feet higher than the land.
It's sinking. In a sense, it's oxidized, it's blown away, it's literally burnt up.
You have the problem with the land behind the levees going down. You have the problem of sea level rising. And then you have the wild card, the Northern California wild card, or earthquakes.
Thought that this precisely concerns the people who live here.
I mean, never once would I ever consider leaving because of any of these fears.
Now that we know what it is, just wait till you see what you can do in the Delta. That's next, when Eye on the Bay returns.
Coming up next, we travel deep into what some say is the Delta's version of the Amazon. Plus, we're off to a small town that celebrates the Crawdad.
Welcome back to Eye on the Bay and our look at the California Delta. Now that we know some basics, we're off over the next 2 nights to uncover the way of life here. And we begin by hopping on a boat for a truly wonderful ecological tour. On a bend of Steamboat Slough sits Heartland Nursery, home to Delta Eco Tours. For a journey of discovery and a quiet getaway, you can climb on board the Thule Queen.
Morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Hart. sometimes called Captain Thule. We're about to embark on a very interesting trip into what we call the Thule Wilderness.
So this is it's a 3-hour tour,
Yes.
just like the Gilligan's thing. What's the point of the tour? What are you trying to get across?
Well, we have been very much involved with habitat restoration, trying to protect the Delta.
Jeff knows the area all too well because he's trying to save it. Heartland Nursery grows and restores native plants to the levees. Visitors can tour their gardens and buy low-maintenance plants that thrive in this area.
Good morning, folks. This is Captain Thule at the helm. Welcome aboard the Thule Queen 2. And we're in the heart of the California Delta. It's about 750,000 acres in size. If you were to orbit this area in a satellite, this area would shine as a green emerald triangle far beneath you. For those of us who live in the Delta, it's a fantastic place to live. And immediately, one of our Delta denizens, looks like he's got, what, 3 dogs?
Catch anything?
It's a wonderful environment. Now, these trees not only help hold the levees together, but they provide phenomenal habitat.
A few agencies believe that all vegetation should be removed from the levees. Jeff's studies show that planting the levees strengthens them and creates a habitat for wildlife.
Now, we may see some levee districts burning off the levees up here. So you see some levee management going on. What they will argue is they want to see the levees. So they want to clear it off so they can see any problems.
And is that what they're doing up here, is they're burning it?
They're throwing matches down there, see that?
That's how they burn it off? They just throw matches into it?
Oh yeah, he said that if he had hand grenades, he'd throw it down there. Well, we're coming up to an interesting part of our trip today. This is probably one of the wildest areas that you can find in the whole Central Valley.
On some waterways of the Thule Wilderness, the foliage becomes dense. It's Northern California's version of the Amazon.
Just imagine being in a canoe or a kayak. You could literally get lost amongst these tules out here, and you hear sights and sounds that you just don't see in other parts of California. It's open water, tules, ribbons of riparian plant growth. There's a great blue heron up in front of us. See, it almost looks like a prehistoric bird with its kind of laconically flapping its wings. This could be a place where Californians come to appreciate nature in a hurried, busy lifestyle, people stuck in traffic jams and listening to their iPods. Here's a place where you can become unplugged and just go quietly and leave nothing but a very small wake behind.
For more information on the nursery or eco-tours, log on to our website, cbs5.com/Eye on the Bay.
Still to come, Brian Hackney goes small town as he visits 2 tiny hamlets, one with lots of shellfish, the other, let's just say, bigger than life. Plus, Brian does something he's never done before. This should be fun.
Welcome back to Eye on the Bay and our special 2-part series on the California Delta. I'm Brian Hackney, and when you cross over that Antioch Bridge and enter the Delta, you enter a world that seems so different, but it's so close to the Bay Area. You first land here on Sherman Island and you begin to drive through about 15 tiny towns. Some of them are well established and some of them are tiny little dinky dots on the map. We're going to drive through all of them and we'll start at Rio Vista. Rio Vista was founded in 1858, but it wasn't known as Rio Vista, and it wasn't founded here. Originally known as Brazos del Rio, the arms of the river, because if you look at a map, it looks like the Sacramento River has embraced Rio Vista. And the original site was washed away in the winter rains of 1861. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. We have no idea if they built an ark.
Fue al verte a ti, chaparrita, en una tarde de abril, cuando mi vida cambió, mi corazón se enamoró.
Oh, that's beautiful. You got a good voice, too. You know, what's different about the Delta?
Well, besides have a lot of fishing.
People caught that in the
Yes,
Delta?
and the other room was another one.
So a lot of the businesses have been here for a long time.
Yes, this business has been here for 50 years or so.
50
With
years.
the same name.
Our next stop in Rio Vista, Foster's Bighorn, which looks stunning from the outside. And on the inside, it looks like a really nice bar. The polished counter, the clientele, its lunch, and it's got great food and a great host. Oh my God, that looks beautiful. That is great.
Those are pork ribs.
And you are?
I'm Howard Lamont.
Howard, nice to meet you.
Pleased to meet you, Brian.
You run this place.
You betcha.
Ben, and now let me ask you, do people come here for the food?
They come here for the food. They come here for the ribs and the steak sandwiches and the beef fillets.
Do they ever come here for that?
Every once in a while.
This is extraordinary. Tell me about the history of it. How did all this come about?
Bill Foster was Portuguese. He came out of the East Bay. He was a bootlegger. He made a lot of money during Prohibition. And at the end of Prohibition, he needed a job, so he set up this bar. And he hunted and made 8 trips to Africa.
Bill's collection originally totaled over 500. Howard still has 250 different heads on display, including a moose that at the time was the largest known specimen in the world. Yeah. Oh my God, look at that.
The real tusks are on the wall.
My gosh. And then right to the right, there's a giraffe. He bagged a giraffe.
I've got the big 5.
The big 5?
Well, the big 5 is the rhino, the elephant, the giraffe, the hippopotamus, and the Cape buffalo.
Just 5 miles up the road from Rio Vista is a hamlet that is famous for 2 things. First, it's the birthplace of my stepmother. And second, it's the crawdad capital of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Isleton. Isleton hosts the annual Crawdad Festival, and it's just one of the many tiny towns on the Delta that epitomize a slow and laid-back pace of life. Having that, crawdads, for lunch turns out to be a process. What happens first?
We're going to go get the crawdads live.
Oh my God. Wow, I used to have those in an aquarium.
Say goodbye.
Say goodbye.
What a way to go. And, well, that was quick.
Yes, it was.
Thank you so much. Oh, this is...
It's a crawdad pale ale.
You don't actually use crawdads in making this, do you?
Not, I hope not.
Martina's here to show us
just
how to
show
do this.
like once, just cut it one piece like that. Even if
tastes like lobster. It does.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for doing
Okay.
this for us. We
You're
really
welcome,
appreciate
sir.
it. That's great.
Welcome back to Isleton.
Yeah, on the other hand, sorry you guys, but you did it for Eye on the Bay.
When we come back, Brian does something he's never done before. This should be fun.
Welcome back to Eye on the Bay. I'm Brian Hackney. Before we head down this road to do something I have never done before, let's tell you what's coming up tomorrow night as our series on the California Delta continues. You've seen the large tankers that come through the Golden Gate and then off to the port of Oakland, but what is it like for those massive ships to navigate through the super narrow channels of the Delta? That will wow you. Plus, we'll go gambling on the water, so to speak, find out what the Delta poker runs are all about. We'll visit the only town in the U.S. built and settled solely by Chinese immigrants. And then, and this is right up my alley, what will happen to the Delta when the big one hits? Now we're in a town called Bird's Landing, a blip on the map between Rio Vista and Fairfield, at a special preserve where people come to do this.
And then we're going to give you some ammo. How many rounds would you like to do?
I have no clue. You have already been able to tell that I have no experience in this kind of thing.
Yes. I'm going to just throw this number 2 target just to give you an idea of what we got.
You expect me to hit that? You're kidding. Okay, go ahead, pull.
Got that safety on?
Okay, pull.
Nice shot.
Did I hit it?
You did.
I don't see it anymore.
That's right.
What are we doing
This is the
here?
rabbit station.
Pull.
Told ya.
First time, every time. Hey, you know, I'm from Hollister. But don't forget, every rabbit in California, be very afraid. We want to thank the Birds Landing Hunting Preserve. We hope you've enjoyed part 1 of the Delta, and please stay tuned tomorrow night for part 2. You don't want to argue with me. If you want any more information about what you've seen, log onto our website, cbs5.com/Eye on the Bay. I'm Brian Hackney. Appreciate you watching. See you tomorrow night.
Promotional consideration provided by The Ride Hotel and Pinnacle Helicopters.
Welcome to Eye on the Bay. I'm Brian Hackney with part 2 of our look at the California Delta. And don't tell me you missed part 1. Tonight, we continue our journey deep into this world that looks so different from the one we live in. And it's just 45 minutes away from San Francisco. We'll play poker on speedboats, and we'll show you the catastrophe that could occur if and when a massive earthquake strikes the Delta. Of the 1,000 miles of this waterway, there are narrow stretches of the San Joaquin River, made all the more narrow when they try to squeeze those massive tankers in its banks, as correspondent Dave Stoelk discovers in this very cool tale.
Ah, yes, the world-famous Port of San Francisco. People and cargo pass through the famed Golden Gate on romantic voyages to or from distant and colorful ports of call, the tropics, the Far East. So which exotic destination are we going to steam toward today, Captain?
Stockton.
Stockholm, Sweden.
No, Stockton, California.
Our journey began when Captain Tom Miller, a San Francisco bar pilot, steered us toward a vessel anchored in San Francisco Bay. The Queen Asia is a Panamanian-flagged ship laden with 26,000 tons of cement she picked up in China. But the Queen's 2-week ocean journey isn't over. Well, maybe the ocean part is, because she's headed to one more port, inland, way up in the Delta, to Stockton. Opened in 1933, the port of Stockton was dug out of California's rich agricultural region. 4 million tons of product are literally shipped from Stockton every year through a narrow channel carved into Delta farmland, then out into San Francisco Bay, and then finally to ports around the globe. Conversely, inbound ships like the Queen Asia bring products from ports around the world and into the port of Stockton. Captain Tom is going to drive the Queen Asia 75 miles into California's interior farmland.
Yes, good morning, traffic. The Queen Asia preparing to get underway from anchorage number 8, upbound for the port of Stockton.
Outside, the crew raises a flag to signal other vessels that Tom is now at the helm. Now Captain Henry Anthropos must now step aside. Why?
Deep draft is 31 feet 6 inches.
The Queen Asia's hull extends almost 32 feet underwater. Now that's a problem if you look at the charts.
The average depth of the bay is about 12 feet. That's why I'm on board, because I know where the deep water is. Slow ahead.
Slow ahead.
We are underway?
Yeah.
Okay.
San Francisco Bay is deceptive. It looks wide and deep, like you can sail anywhere, but just a few hundred feet off the port bow.
That's about 15 feet deep.
Captain Tom has been piloting ships for over 30 years.
078.
078. So experience tells him where to steer from the shallows. You are tuned into the bay.
Oh boy, you better believe it. I know this bay like I know the back of my hand.
It would be disastrous should 26,000 tons of cement go aground in San Francisco Bay. But so far, this is easy work for a bar pilot. The ship is making, as they say, headway. Good time. Then...
We can reduce to maneuvering speed now, please.
Just past the Antioch Bridge, the Queen Asia enters the Delta, where the Central Valley's rivers meet the bay.
Things are going to change now. We're going into an area where the geographic surroundings are going to change. We're going to be in narrower water.
So Captain Tom is too busy guiding the ship
Port 10.
to take in the views. Central Valley farmland. From a distance, the Queen Asia almost looks like she's floating on farmland.
Even though it looks like everything is going smoothly, I'm constantly watching, constantly setting myself up for the next turn.
And it takes a quarter mile from the time the captain calls for a course change
064
until the mammoth ship actually turns. And notice how the water is held back by the levees above the farmland, which is below sea level. Should the Queen puncture one of these levees just 50 or so feet away, well, then you could have yet another disaster.
Easy, easy, watch it. Watch out, port rudder.
And the channel is not only getting narrower,
starboard 10,
it's getting more shallow. So, after a voyage of over 5,000 miles across the high seas, the only thing between this 16,000-ton vessel and certain disaster are 2 measly feet. Just 2 feet of water cushion the ship's massive hull from the channel's bottom. And that's if Tom keeps the ship on course to begin with.
Full ahead.
Full ahead. The Queen's massive engines can't help but to kick up mud. And if all this wasn't enough to worry our poor bar pilot...
And we're also going to be encountering a lot of small boats now.
The Queen has to share the water with pleasure craft, some of whom intentionally harass her.
We'll holler, blow the whistle, and on occasion I've known to take a coffee cup and throw it.
So here we are, Stockton. Why take Highway 4 when you could take a freighter full of 26,000 tons of cement?
Stop the engine. Stop the engine. Every single ship is different. Each turn kind of has a new adventure.
And who is piloting those little boats that the big ships have to avoid? Well, sometimes they're gamblers.
Everybody ready?
Ready.
Okay, let's go.
When we heard about this popular Delta event, there was no way we could leave it out of our show. It's called a poker run.
We have all day to stop at 9 places. For each place you stop, you get a card at night. And if you're lucky, you'll get a good hand, and we have first, second, and third place.
And I see the boats already beginning to head out. Here we go. Poker runs are popular up in the Delta. Everybody from yacht clubs to chambers of commerce throws some 10 a year. Of course, there's a small fee, but at some events you can win a few $1,000s. And this is
the landing.
And this is stop number 1. We're going to be trading this in later for
hopefully an ace. Ace of spades.
And you see, it's just that simple. You go in, you get your ticket, you buy your drink, you're off to the next stop. I haven't driven a boat since I was about 15 years old. Is that a problem?
Now you tell me.
And where are we now?
This is the Rusty Porthole.
You need to give him a raffle ticket.
Yeah, we just need one. That's good.
Just one? That's it?
Actually, give me 3. What the heck?
Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
Okay. And so this is kind of what we do all day.
That's our goal.
Number 3. There you go.
There you go.
Okay. And that's the point. The more places you can zip around to, the better your poker run hand. I got my ticket. I guess I've got 9. Is there an award for the worst hand of the night?
This is it.
The worst hand of the night, ladies and gentlemen. And that is how they have fun on the Delta.
Coming up next, we head to a tiny town known for peanut butter burgers, but more famous for how it began. It's one of those remarkable local stories you've probably never heard. Plus, it could spell disaster for millions of Californians. What could happen if the big one hits the Delta?
Welcome back to Eye on the Bay as we continue our tour of tiny Delta towns. I'm not really holding this building up, but it looks like I should be, doesn't it? Because this is just one of a number of buildings in this unbelievable tiny town of Lock. You've probably never heard it. You've probably never been here, but you are never going to forget it, mostly because of this little lady right over here. Let's just begin at the beginning. How did the Chinese end up in the Delta?
Well, basically in those days, they don't have much of a choice. They go to where the jobs are. Basic mission is to build the levee system.
What was life like for those workers, do you know?
Very difficult.
There were Chinatowns that sprung up in the Delta as well. Where were they?
Well, there were Chinatown in Cortland, Chinatown in Walnut Grove, Chinatown in Ironton, and then later on, of course, Lock. Lock becomes famous because it's a whole town, it's a Chinatown in itself, built by the Chinese, especially for the Chinese.
What's remarkable to me about it is that it almost looks like a movie set, but it's the real thing.
It is.
And where are we now? What did this used to be?
This is the Dialogue Museum. This, of course, is a former gambling house.
So this is what they do for fun?
Yes.
What kind of games would they play?
Well, the famous game is like a Pai-Gow on this table here. Yeah. This actually is adopted by casinos in Reno and Las Vegas.
Well, you had a lovely little thriving community here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still lovely. It looks as if, Connie, it hasn't changed much, has it?
No.
But you were born in 1923.
Yeah. I'm 84 years old now.
You look great. You look like you're doing great. Are you doing great?
Well, I walk 10,000 steps a day.
10,000 steps a day?
Yeah.
I'd be dead. Good for you.
And this is Elder Wop.
If you visit Lock, don't miss Al's, a classic bar where dollar bills adorn the ceiling. And the special, steak with peanut butter and grilled bread, brings in tourists and locals alike.
Steak, bread and peanut butter. You can't beat it. You ought to try it.
You're down here?
Yeah. I show you where my house now. Can you see the toilet from here?
I can see the toilets.
Yeah, okay.
You've got a toilet bowl garden.
Yeah.
Look at these. Where did these toilets come from?
From the homes.
From the homes in...
Take it out and throw it out way out back there, and I have to drag way all back here.
Well, why did they throw them out?
Because they don't want to sit on the toilet the Chinese sat on.
No.
Yes.
And now you've got a beautiful succulent garden.
Yeah, now there's only 12 Chinese. We have 80.
There's only 12.
80 people live here, 12 Chinese. I've been here the longest. I'm the oldest one in Lock.
Is that right? How does that feel?
I feel fine because I'm still trying to preserve the town alive.
Good for you. Yeah. Good for you.
Still to come, what could happen to you and your family if a major earthquake were to hit the Delta?
Welcome back to Eye on the Bay. I'm Brian Hackney as we continue our tour of small towns in the Delta. And we've arrived at a unique one. Can you tell which? The unique thing about Walnut Grove is that it is the only town in the Delta split by the Sacramento River. Walnut Grove West, Walnut Grove East. It was established in 1850 and named Walnut Grove because, guess what? It's sat in the middle of a bunch of walnut groves. What is it famous for now? Hats. Right on the river, Justy's Restaurant has been a popular Delta stop since the early 1900s.
Are you coming to Justy's?
Yes, we are. We're coming for lunch.
But tell me the story of the hats.
The story with the hats, there's so many farmers around here, and they'd come in for lunch, and they'd leave their hats on a chair or something, and they'd forget them. Before we knew it, we had a bunch of them. Probably about 1,500 up here.
1,500 hats. Does anybody ever come in and go, that's mine?
Oh, all the time. All the time.
It's called Justy's, right?
Justy's, like tomato juice.
Ah, okay, so it's Italian.
It's Italian. That was my grandfather's last name.
Yeah.
He and a His brothers came over here around 1910. Been here, the same family since 1912.
You run a great business. What's the secret?
My father's philosophy was treat everybody the way you would treat your best friends, and they'll come back. You know, and I've got a lot of repeat customers here.
Ah, good for you.
A lot of repeat customers.
Thank you so much,
you bet.
and good luck to you. We're now on the banks of the Sacramento River, a couple of miles south of Walnut Grove. Highway 160 is right up this embankment. And in the embankment of this river, they used to have a tunnel that went right under the highway. Do you know why? Because of that building up on top. That's the Ride Hotel. It was built in 1926 at the height of Prohibition. So what did they use the tunnel for? They used it to get liquor underneath the road and into the speakeasy that was down in the basement. The Ride is now a respectable establishment. We know. We stayed there. Very nice.
Who gives you that kind of authority? We've been around here a lot longer than you have.
Why were these guys so upset? The sun was out, the birds were singing.
Gorgeous day in June, beautiful day in June.
And the levee road surrounding the Jones track had busted wide open. It was just one small break in the entire Delta levee system. It would fill the entire Jones Track Island.
But while they are filling, there's nothing you can do to stop the filling. Once a levee breaks, the power of that water as it comes through that breach in the levee is irresistible. And so it eventually fills this entire island in the space of a couple of days.
Why do the levees disintegrate? Well, it may look like they're made out of dirt, but in a lot of cases, they're made out of this. Nothing but sand.
And they're almost like jelly. I mean, you look at the levee the wrong way, and it sort of collapses.
This is one of the worst levees. And you know, and just riding along it like this, you can see how we're banging up and down going along this levee. It's not in very good shape.
How many miles of levee roads like this are there?
1,100 miles.
But these crumbling levees...
Well, I'd say crummy.
Either way, they're what corral much of our water supply. In all, 22 million Californians, 22 million, get their water from the California Delta. And what caused the levee to weaken, that caused the break, that ultimately caused $90 million of damage on this Bacon Island Road levee? They think it was a beaver.
The number one nemesis out here is the lovable beaver. I mean, beavers get into these levees and they build these 6-foot diameter dens inside them, and the levees collapse and then they fail.
Floods are another threat, but...
At the top of the list of scary things is a very large earthquake.
Prescription for failure.
Mount Diablo is always in view from the Delta, and Mount Diablo was raised by the Concord Fault. Look at that offset right there. That's the Concord Fault.
And a result of fault creep, with the fault moving like this side of the curb has been moved to the north. This side has been pushed in that direction, and they've been separated. And this will just continue to do this. And at some point down the road, the fault is going to lock up, it's going to move 2 or 3 feet, and we're going to have our magnitude 6.7 earthquake.
That these are not engineered to handle an earthquake.
We're just going to see widespread failure of this levee system.
You could lose as many as 16 of these islands, or even more.
A massive amount of fresh water would pour into the islands. As a result, the salt water in the San Francisco estuary gets sucked back into the Delta.
And once that salt water gets into this Delta, you've polluted the drinking water supply for 25 million people.
This constitutes 60% of California's water supply passing through here. This is a recipe for a major disaster.
But it is possible, if I'm right, for that source of water for California to disappear in 30 seconds.
Yes.
What happens next? The Central Valley Project is shut down. The State Water Project is shut down. They don't get the Delta system up and running for at least 5 years. There's $40 billion in damage.
This is a big, big effect on the entire economy of California. And I remind everybody that As California's economy goes, so goes the economy of the nation. As humans, we have this incredible ability to ignore risk.
Do you guys worry at all about earthquakes?
Not really. No, I'm not concerned about earthquakes at all.
They don't seem very worried about it.
No, they don't.
You know what they'll say? Well, how about those of you that live in San Francisco with the San Andreas Fault?
I mean, we don't worry about the earthquakes on the levees no more than people that live in San Francisco worry about another Loma Prieta coming.
We certainly don't live in fear of the levees breaking.
They're wrong. The risks are incredibly high.
When could the Concord Fault go?
It could go right now.
You know, in a way, we probably haven't dealt with it because it's such a difficult problem to deal with. It's incredibly expensive. Not everybody's going to be happy. Californians have no idea where this is, what this is, and why it's relevant to their lives.
On the other hand, the forces that combined to create the Delta came together about 600,000 years ago. We only altered it beginning in the year 1850, 157 years ago. So why would it be a surprise if it could also disappear like that? Well, our advice is enjoy it while you can. And to do that, log onto our website, cbs5.com/Eye on the Bay. We'll have all the info about what you've seen over the past 2 days and about how you can enjoy it yourself. In the meantime, I'm Brian Hackney. Thanks for watching.
Promotional consideration provided by H2O To Go, Watercraft Rentals of the Delta, and by the Ride Hotel and Pinnacle Helicopters.